Hi, Alan Stratton from Woodturning. For this week's project, let's turn this segmented plate out of maple, hickory, and walnut. You see a lot of segmented projects, but they're more taller than flat, and there's probably some reasons for this. When I moved from Oregon to Utah, many of my projects that had long butt joints in them, unsupported, cracked because of the change in humidity. And I've tried to overcome that in this project by, number one, any butt joint here on the outer ring. This ring is actually two rings so that the joints are offset, so that there's a side grain joint to reinforce every butt joint here in this ring. In addition, the inner rings are all put in at a bevel, which also gives a little bit more gluing surface and bricklays the rings. Also is a little bit more forgiving when you're insetting than just a straight mortise. So this one I had some difficulties in doing it, and you'll see those enough in the video, and I'll appreciate your suggestions on how to overcome them. I'm still working on that. But in addition, some of you have asked what I was using that I didn't elaborate on in previous videos to position the discs. Well, there's several types. I made a bunch of these in one, which are just internal positioning. If the inner diameter is known, I can use these to position a disc and center it. They worked well. Then I've also experimented with these, which is a little disc that will ride on a cone center on this side, but will go into the inner hole of a disc. Well, this one only handles so much, so there's another one to go a little bit bigger from that one, and another one to go bigger from that, and another to go bigger from that, and another to go bigger from that, and another to go bigger from that. They all have their limits, and I also printed some additional widths to handle some of the degrees in between. But I think what I've evolved to more on this project is this Longworth chuck. I don't like Longworth chucks for turning because I don't feel that I can get them tight enough to securely hold the work. So it's exceptional when I'll use a Longworth on the spindle. But it works pretty good for centering and positioning a ring. You can go out this far. This is an 8-inch, or when the ring gets too big for that, turn it in and grab on the center. So I made the little buttons here very short so that they don't exceed a ring, and then I put more of a handle on this with a standard hex bolt so that I can tighten it just with my hands, and that's enough for segmented work. I will never use this on a live spindle because I don't trust 3D printed parts to withstand the rotational force. So with that, you'll see a bunch of mistakes on this one. Maybe I shouldn't show it, but I will anyway, so that I can have your suggestions on how to overcome them. Let's turn this plate. I will not show the details of making a segmented ring in every video. For this project, I made two large walnut rings of the same size, two between sizes of hickory salvaged from flooring, and a 3-ply center from maple. I also have plenty of threaded wood faceplates. After sanding the rings, I glued the two walnut rings together. Since they will become the rim, I wanted to be sure the joints are well supported. I did not want a butt joint on the rim without the support of side grain. Since my ring slicing would have only yielded a very thin, fragile ring, I again sanded the combined ring down to working size. There are many alternatives to a thickness sander. Then applied double-stick tape. This will hold the ring to a waist backing. Then centered the walnut on the waist backing that has been glued to a threaded wood faceplate. After a little trimming on a larger hickory ring, I switched to the outer walnut ring and cut out some of the extra wood in the center with a spindle gouge. This will reduce the wood that I need to cut out with the scraper. Then swap my tool rest for an angle jig. I must ensure the jig is parallel to the ring to maintain the correct angle. Then the angle jig guides my scraper into the cut. Then swap the rings back again so that the hickory ring is on the headstock side. Now for the final fitting of the hickory and walnut. This is a critical joint that is easy to overcut. My 5-degree gauge helps to check for the corresponding angle. Then spread glue on both surfaces and slide them together. Some denatured alcohol helps to loosen the double-stick tape so that I can remove the waste mount wood. However, it turns out that my joint was still a bit sloppy. While before the inner had bottomed out, I thought I was finished. I had cut too much and the joint wanted to go deeper. With the back ring gone, it could, but then there was a slight alignment issue, but not too much that I could not turn it out. I will do better next time. Now the inner hickory is on a faceplate so that I can trim the perimeter to my target size. Next, exchange the rings and mark the diameter on the outer ring. Then proceed to trim the inside waste wood. Then mount the angle jig into the tool rest. Time to cut the 5-degree into the ring. Unfortunately, the double stick tape breaks loose. Fortunately, the cut is good enough that not all is lost. I will go ahead to try to finish. By the way, I'm still working on that angle jig. Now to trim the inner ring to fit the outer hickory ring as is. I just hope I can align it well enough while gluing it later. After trimming it down, I can glue it and hope for the best. So far, it has survived. This is the center maple plywood. Time for a slight trim. And back to my 3 outer rings now joined together. I need to take out some of the inner waste, but I am now sensitive to how easily the double stick tape can fail. Removal with the gouge works. Every bit I remove now will reduce the risk while using the scraper later. Time for the jig and the actual taper cut. And again, back to trimming the innermost ring. This ring is a bit thicker than I need, and the crossband layer is close to the bottom side. This time I'm deliberately cutting this side to go deeper into the outer rings. In fact, I return the outer rings to the spindle so I can deepen the mortise that will receive the maple tenon. Fortunately, this does not need to be tapered into the waste wood. I only need the hole and for the maple not to bottom out against the waste. Then apply glue. By the way, at this point, up is to the right, but the faceplate to the left is attached with double stick tape. There is too much risk of it coming off prematurely as I finish the project. With the alcohol, I took off the left faceplate. It turns out that the extra maple wood that I pushed into the plate is nearly perfect for a temporary tenon. I only need to trim in a dovetail. By the way, up is to the left right now. With the plate now mounted securely to the center disc, my first task is to remove the faceplate from the other side, then proceed to shape the interior first with my bowl gouge. This wood, especially the hickory, is very hard. I have to take very light cuts. The side grain spirals out from the cuts very nicely. I switch to a round carbide scraper for the final cuts to limit the risk of digging in. Then tackle the bottom side that is between the plate and the headstock for as much as I can reach. Beautiful. Then thoroughly sand. Now for the foot. This is almost the same as any other project. I cut down the foot and blended the curves together. This is an ornamental plate, so the foot diameter can be smaller. Then sanded the foot and signed the base. Finally, walnut oil to make the wood pop. This plate had its problems. I need to figure out how to hold the wood securely. Double stick tape was not enough with this tough wood. However, I do not want to use hot melt or standard glue. Maybe more double stick tape that denature alcohol can still dissolve. We will see. There were challenges and learning experiences, but I think still a success. Maybe I should not show the difficulties, but they are a reality. I hope you can learn from them and provide suggestions for the future. I am open to your ideas. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe on my website, and tell your friends. I appreciate your comments and questions. Every week I make a new wood turning video and add it to my website. Please wear your full face shield for safety anytime the lathe is running. I will see you next week with another wood turning video. Be wise in these COVID times, get your shot, and count your blessings.